And I'll go ahead and make the declaration if Chris will make the actual motion. But Chapter 1283 of the Virginia 2020 Acts of Assembly addresses the ability of conservation districts to hold electronic meetings without the need for a quorum being present in a single location when a state of emergency has been declared pursuant to Section 44-146.17 of the Code of Virginia. Chris, would you make the motion that we have the electronic meeting, please?
I move that the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors has determined the nature of the declared COVID-19 virus emergency makes it difficult or unsafe for us to assemble in a single location for the purpose of transacting business statutorily required or necessary for us to continue operations and discharge our lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Been seconded by Director Peters. Any further discussion? I'll call the roll. If you're in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Director Peters?
Aye.
Director Bordas?
Aye.
Director Corner?
Aye.
Director Bilger?
Aye.
Motion is carried. So we are legal with an electronic meeting. I think you all have a copy of our agenda. Are we still seeing people logging in? Oh, we're 5 minutes past, so I think we better get started. Director Bilger, would you review the minutes of the October 27th meeting, please?
Yes, I have reviewed the minutes and I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been, I heard Chris. Chris, was that you?
Yes, it was.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, once again, I'll call the roll. If you're in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed, please say nay. Director Bilger?
Aye.
Director Bordas?
Aye.
Director Corner?
Aye.
Director Peters?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. Treasurer's report from October 2020. Director Corner?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I've reviewed the October Treasurer's report, find it acceptable, and move to file it for audit.
Treasurer's report will be received and filed for audit. Is there anything else, Chris, that we need to talk about?
I assume we'll have a board item a little later for the approval of the budget and funding request to the county.
That probably could come up under the Operations Committee discussion.
Okay.
Which is next on the agenda. We just had an Operations Committee meeting. The board has met and talked about a number of things this morning. Laura, do you or Jerry or somebody want to take the lead in discussing those things that need to come up before the board?
I'm sorry, I just need to interrupt. Do we need to second the filing for audit?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We had a very good Executive Operations Committee meeting this morning and reviewed a number of different things, including some updates regarding the district director and personnel policies and some things that our board will be working toward, and our Executive Operations Committee, I guess I should say, will be working toward over the course of the next 6 months or so. We also reviewed the annual plan of work and discussed the extension of our strategic plan as well. And so, Jerry, I don't know if you have anything that you might.
Yes, I'd like to move two things. Maybe I can do it in one motion, maybe two. One is that we extend the existing 4-year strategic plan through the end of this fiscal year, so that we give ourselves some headspace to examine that along with a lot of other policies. The process we've started this morning.
Is that a motion?
I would make that a motion to extend the existing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we extend our strategic plan until the end of the fiscal year. Is there any further discussion? Once again, I'll call the roll. If you're in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. If you're opposed, please say nay. Director Peters?
Aye.
Director Corner?
Aye.
Director Bilger?
Aye.
Director Bordas?
Aye.
The motion carried. And before we proceed, let me apologize to Chris and Laura. We do have something where we talk about the contributory request on the budget coming up later in the in the agenda. Anything else on the executive committee?
Yes, John, the second motion is that the minor amendments that have been offered by Laura to the annual plan of work were discussed at the executive board meeting, and I make the motion that we adopt the annual plan of work as edited by Laura.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Adria has seconded. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Again, hearing none, I'll call the roll, and please signify if you approve, say aye. If you're opposed, say nay. Director Bilger.
Aye.
Director Bordas.
Aye.
Director Corner.
Aye.
Director Peters.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you. Anything else on the Ops Committee or the Executive Committee, Jerry? Or Laura, either one? Or any of the board members?
Oh, I just want to make an acknowledgement that during the conversation this morning, again, in regards to some of the policies in our upcoming strategic planning, is that I will be looking to schedule a half day, maybe multiple half day kind of retreats, gatherings, meetings for our board associates and staff in order to work through our strategic plan and some of the associated policies. So stay tuned. We've got an exciting second half of our fiscal year ahead.
And we're going to do that as soon as we can, I think, aren't we, Laura?
Yes.
I think now, unless there's something else that one of the directors wants to bring up from the Operations Committee meeting, we're down to the TRC summary. Director Bordas?
Yes, thank you. We had a wonderful meeting on November 17th, and I just want to say a big warm welcome to new staff that'll be working specifically with the TRC is Judy Frazier. Judy comes to us as a new urban conservation specialist and coordinator of the conservation assistance programs. And Judy has a broad range of experience from not only working with us as partners with different programs that she's active with Fairfax City and with the county, but also she's worked as a landscape designer, has a degree in architecture, and is just a wonderful addition to our staff. So I'm really excited, Judy. I'm sorry if I missed any of your credentials, but I know that you are more than well qualified for this position, and we're very excited to have you. So we did a soil and water quality conservation plan with Willie. Willie presented a soil and water quality conservation plan for a property that is transitioning to a mini farm homestead, which would be about 9.4 acres with 2.2 acres in pasture. And we talked a lot about what they plan to include in their current plan. They have some chickens, but they plan to expand their operation to cattle, pigs, vegetable gardens, and orchards, and also a pasture. They will not qualify for any cost share program. This is just something that is required, of course, by the county, and that to have this soil and water conservation quality plan. So this is for April and Matt, and I'm going to Matiasic Mini Farm in Clifton, and this is in the Springfield Supervisor District. Again, 24 chickens, 8 ducks, 3 geese, 1 cow, 1 steer, 4 pigs, orchard and vegetable garden is what is planned for this. I'm going to make a motion to approve the soil and water conservation plan for the Matiasic Mini Farm in Clifton.
We have a motion to approve the Matiasic Mini Farm in Clifton. The plan for that, the soil and water conservation plan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Could we discuss one thing? One of the contingencies that we added to that was that we put these applicants in touch with other people who are doing similar things. Do we have any activity in them? Do we have any referrals to them? Really?
Yes, there will. hope you can hear me. There will be referrals made to these people. I haven't taken the plan back to the MatiasX yet. And when I do that is when I would establish connection with them and other people that may be of assistance to them. Usually I wait for the board to go through this last phase before I take a plan over to our cooperators.
Gotcha. Thank you, Willie.
Is there any further discussion of that plan? Again, hearing none, I'll call the roll. If you're in favor of the plan, please signify by saying aye. If you're opposed, say nay. Director Bilger.
Aye.
Director Bordas.
Aye.
Director Peters.
Aye.
Director Corner.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, Adria, for that.
Okay, one more thing, Chairman Peterson. We have a conservation assistance program, watershed. This is a reimbursement. So this is for the courtyard of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Vienna, and this replaced about 5,000 square feet of turf conservation landscaping. And the church in the future has plans to use this for an outdoor classroom, vegetable garden, and additional seating, which is fantastic. And we love to see people using the outdoor space. This would be a reimbursement that would be for Emmanuel Lutheran Church. This is in Vienna, in the Providence Supervisor District, and in the Difficult Run Watershed. The motion is to approve the CAP watershed reimbursement request for the Emmanuel Lutheran Church.
We have a motion to approve the request for the Emmanuel Lutheran Church. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, once again, I'll call the roll. If you're in favor, signify by saying aye. If you're opposed, please say nay. Director Bordas?
Aye.
Director Bilger?
Aye.
Director Corner?
Aye.
Director Peters?
Aye.
The motion carries. Anything else on the TRC? Adria?
Well, we have, we were in general agreement that we likely won't have anything for the December 18th TRC meeting, so we are going to cancel that unless there's some critical thing that comes up. So, keep that as a placeholder on your calendar, but likely our next meeting will be January 19th, coming up for the TRC. We did have some interest in the soil compaction study. Thank you, Dan and Maria, for getting that information to us and the information. And also I wanted to give a big thanks to Jim and the folks who did the oak decline seminar webinar with me. Holy smokes, we had such a great interest in that. Over 300 plus people were registered. So, and that's all I have. Everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Very good. Thank you, Adria. I think now we're down to the Fairfax County contributory request for Laura and Chris.
Yes, so I have just a quick presentation that I will walk everyone through in regards to our proposed FY22 budget. So bear with me here for a moment. I navigate over. Starting up. Can everybody see the presentation?
Now we can. I can.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So I want to thank again our executive committee and our staff and everybody who's participated and has contributed towards some of the discussion and decisions that go into our budget. As I've shared in the past with our finance committee, the budget process takes some time. There's a lot of different pieces that go into it, including closing the books on our previous fiscal year, making adjustments to our reserves, that are dedicated reserves and our unrestricted reserves, as well as thinking through any staff salary changes and things like that. So the FY22 budget is a reflection of several months of hard work and all. So today, the executive committee may have a few adjustments here in regards to the motions that we will be making. But really today we wanted to review the FY22 budget and give you a little bit of background in regards to the contributory request that we are making to Fairfax County. So our approach this year is really, or for FY22, is to maintain. We are striving to maintain our budget level to the FY21 level to the extent possible. But our budget still reflects what funding we need in order to be able to implement our programs that are consistent with our strategic plan. So as we make some adjustments and work through the strategic planning process, we may need to come back and revisit our budget to ensure that we've got the resources necessary. And certainly the two documents should coincide and to ensure that we're not over planning for the resources that we have and not under planning for the resources that we have. Our budget is pretty straightforward. It includes personnel and operation line items. Our personnel includes the 9 merit positions that we have. 7 of those are full-time and 2 are part-time. And then it also includes 2 part-time seasonal interns for a total of roughly 42 weeks. Our operations includes 13 line items as well. And we'll go through just a handful of them in regards to the changes that were made this year. So as I was sharing with the executive committee that it's kind of like looking into a crystal ball right now. There is a lot of uncertainty because of the challenges with COVID, especially not so much on the residential side. Many of you may have been following along with some of the sales that have been taking place. We're in this interesting little bubble in regards to the residential real estate values. And so by virtue of that, the real estate tax is really going to be steady for the next several years. But where we're having some issues is on the commercial real estate tax side. And this is information that's coming from DMB. That's where the most uncertainty exists, as many businesses and operations are beginning to realize that telework works. And so they're shuttering a number of their office spaces. So there's some creative work that's taking place in regards to the making those sort of considerations. For this current year, we've got some new staff, we've got orientations and trainings, and we'll be undergoing some strategic planning this year as well. We've had 2 major purchases this fall, which we're very excited about, including our new F-150 truck, as well as upgrading all of our computer software so that all of our team has the mobile capabilities. As a matter of fact, those computers have arrived. I'm having mine installed today, and I know our team is scheduling with DIT to ensure that they're available to have their computers installed as well. So it's a very, very exciting time for all of us. We're also recognizing that the COVID adaptations will have to continue. It's kind of a weird phrasing there. I guess it should say adaptations to our programs as a result of COVID. COVID is doing its own thing. But we certainly recognize that there are programs that we have been able to switch over to the virtual realm. There are some new things that we are trying out. Last month, we talked a little bit about the soil videos that were created using some new software that we have, and many of the other needs for more virtual learning kind of opportunities, especially since schools are remaining virtual, at least for the time being. What can we anticipate as we head into FY22? As I was mentioning just a few moments ago, we still don't really fully understand what the overall implications of COVID are going to be on our funding. Because our contribution does come from the stormwater penny, which is derived from the real estate tax. That is an area that we need to be watching closely. Our hope is that we can just, again, maintain our needs. The annual plan of work, as you saw, is maintaining our base and evergreen programs. It does not mean that we can't be creative and that we can't look for other opportunities. But for our base contributions, which make up, the majority of our budget, that's what we're hoping to just be able to maintain as we kind of weather this storm. So stay tuned. We will likely have more information on this as in the coming months, and as additional information is being presented as the Fairfax County presents their budget. I wanted to walk through a little bit in regards to the various components of our budget. And as I mentioned, we're staying pretty steady. The only modification that may be made that we, in regards to personnel, that we'll need to take into consideration is the results of an actuarial study that we're doing to explore potential involvement and enrollment in the Virginia retirement system. So we will be getting that information here in the coming months and have it in time to be able to make some decisions as we move into FY22. So we'll have to kind of stay steady on that. But the budget right now does not include any of that information. It's just too early for us to make any assumptions in regards to what it would take for us to enroll in the program based upon the scenarios that we discussed and the ultimate scenario that the board will select. So the recommendation is that that we do continue the seasonal paid internship program that we have. That position is particularly important in helping to meet the demand of our outreach and education programs. Again, I was sharing with the executive committee meeting this morning that as folks are getting outside, they're looking for meaningful opportunities for engagement. And certainly our stream monitoring program, storm drain labeling, and other stewardship initiatives that we have been extremely popular. And this in turn certainly helps in that regard, as well as helping with a wide variety of communication on social media and other media platforms. As in years past, if there is a market rate adjustment that is recommended by the county executive, we will also request the same market rate adjustment from the county as well. And that is something that's been kind of a long-standing arrangement that we have had with Fairfax County, and DMB is aware of it. Unfortunately, I do not anticipate that there will be a market rate adjustment, but if there is, it will be a very welcome surprise.
Laura, this is John. I should know the answer to this, but when did that actuarial study actually start?
We anticipate it. We actually have not moved forward with the actuarial study as we've been hiring positions, but we plan on moving forward with that at the end of this month.
Thank you.
For FY22, our budget again remains steady with our contributory request. You'll see the breakdown by our major sources of funding. So we do anticipate again looking at roughly $102,000 being requested for our contribution toward personnel for FY22. The estimate for FY21 does include fully staffed for the full year. So even at the end of the year, it may be slightly adjusted based upon our current staffing and any other changes that may occur over the course of this next year. So we'll be able to, again, have some additional refinements to this as we head into FY22. On the operations side, again, because of COVID, we are looking to maintain to the extent possible. As in years past, we are also trying to make sure that we are documenting all of the different components that go into our budget. Excuse me. One item that Heather and I noticed that was not included in previous years, and so appeared to have a slight uptick for this particular line item, is under professional services. And there's a $400 QuickBooks enhanced payroll fee that's associated with that. So in FY20, you'll see it's roughly $2,000 is what we actually spent. This is where that extra $400 came from. On the telephone and mobile devices side, again, as we have more information, we're able to refine these numbers. In years past, we had data plans for 8 devices. We'll actually have 6 devices that will require the mobile data service. So that slight reduction is what accounts for that. There are a number of line items that I am looking at as well that we'll want to kind of track for the next couple of years. One is going to be mileage and travel costs. Certainly, as things are becoming more virtual, it's reducing the dependency on travel costs, as well as mileage reimbursement associated with going to different parts of the Commonwealth. So it may be a trend that continues, although I think many of us are also feeling like there is a need for more camaraderie. If those opportunities exist for those in-person meetings and in-person trainings, those are of course ideal within safe circumstances. But I do anticipate that those line items may be areas that we'll need to just continue to watch and make adjustments if necessary. So again, this gives you the breakdown for the operations costs associated for our organization as well. The other item I wanted to mention is with the new truck, I do also anticipate that mileage will go down a bit as well, as there is more vehicles available for our field staff, particularly for those that are participating in green sheets and VCAP site visits. There's a lot of travel that's involved, local travel that's involved with that. Our funding sources, again, this just gives you a slightly different picture of the contributions. Certainly, as you can see, we have a strong reliance on Fairfax County for the majority of our personnel and operations costs, primarily personnel, in regards to supporting their MS4, as well as a wide variety of other activities that we do with both the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services, as well as land development services. DCR, this is the admin ops grant. At this point, we are assuming that it will stay steady, but of course that will be dependent upon the governor's budget and other factors as DCR is also weathering the COVID storm. So we are looking at roughly a $130,000 contribution from our district toward our overall budget. And let me show you a little bit about where those numbers come from. We do anticipate, I have to admit, that the agricultural cost share based technical assistance funds are really important. It's an important recognition of the value that we bring to supporting the agricultural community in Fairfax County. Even if they don't necessarily result in an agricultural cost share project, they do result in the technical assistance and the better management of agricultural lands, both agriculture in the traditional sense and the non-traditional sense, such as equine operations or the small mini farm that was presented just a little bit ago. The non-recurring grants, those are grants or funds that we have to either apply for or are dependent upon the completion of other projects. So the VCAP technical assistance reimbursement, for example, is included as a non-recurring grant because of the completion of projects that's required. That 24% represents about 25 completed projects. And what we have found in recent years is based upon the site visit requests, we usually get about half of the projects or those site visits move forward with an application. The CAP technical assistance, we did apply for the EIP funding this year. And that is also dependent upon the budget review process. As you all might recall, this past year, our funding for the local environmental improvement program funded conservation assistance program was cut as a result of COVID. So we will hopefully see that moving forward or find another opportunity for continuation of that locally funded program. A program revenue side incorporates things such as our native seedling sale, support for the Potomac Watershed Roundtable, the interest that we earn on our money market account, the administrative support that we provide to the Rain Barrel program, as well as some past grants and dedicated reserves. So this just shows you a little bit about our trajectory in regards to our county contributions over the last almost 10 years, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, yes, 10 years. So we do go through periods of time where we do need to make that request in order to ensure that we're keeping up with the market, making adjustments for health benefit costs, as well as meeting additional demands for programs. So this year, as I mentioned before, we are looking to maintain our contribution from Fairfax County at $554,811. With the uncertainty that exists, we do foresee a need for some enhanced budget tracking. We do provide reports quarterly to DCR in Fairfax County for their specific needs. However, we are looking to integrate our budget into QuickBooks so that we can have more regular reviews and make adjustments if it's necessary. It's an opportunity for us to be able to track along, say, for example, mileage costs or other specific line items, and also see where we may be having some shortfalls within other line items, such as equipment, for example. Those are just arbitrary examples, but gives you an idea. We will be doing a mid-year financial review in January as well, and sharing just sort of where we're at with our current budget at that time. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
Any questions? Questions or comments? Gosh, Laura, you've done so well. No one's going to ask any questions.
Well, I anticipate you might have some questions as you move forward and perhaps put your eyes on things. As I do want to mention, as we discussed during the executive committee meeting, as we have a little bit more certainty with the numbers coming forward from Fairfax County and from DCR as we move into the spring, we will revisit our budget and make sure that we're capturing those known knowns at that time, and certainly finalizing this. So this.
But the budget really at some point has to be approved, and we have to get it ready to forward to Fairfax County.
Yes, that's correct.
And that has to be done sometime in December, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That's right.
Chris, on the Finance Committee side, do you have any comments or?
Well, I was prepared to make a motion. We all just got the letter in the package yesterday, so haven't had a chance to review it, but recognizing the timeliness of getting this through, we'll make a motion for funding. But Laura put together 37 pages that are basically a summary of the good work the district has done and does to the county. And when you read it in total, it's actually pretty impressive. And, you know, a lot of little things go together to make one big thing. And with that, I'd like to thank all the staff and also make a motion to approve the district budget and funding contributory request to Fairfax County for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $554,811, so we can get that process started and move forward with the county.
We have the motion that you see in front of you. Is there a second?
I would second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Once again, I'll call the roll, and if you're in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. If you're opposed, say nay. Director Bilger?
Aye.
Director Bordas?
Aye.
Director Corner?
Aye.
Director Peters?
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
And with that, we've all committed to getting back to Laura any comments that we have on the package, mostly editorial, I would presume, by the end of next week.
End of next week, right. Any further discussion, Chris or Laura?
No, thanks for the good work of putting this all together.
It is good work. That's pretty impressive.
I'd be interested to see how our contributory request compares to other agencies in the county. Yeah, I bet you we stand out. That's not a task.
But I would say, yeah, I think we do stand out quite a bit.
Yeah, we do.
I appreciate that. I do. I think we've got a long-standing history in regards to providing this kind of package to Fairfax County. So, no, I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And it behooves all of us to continue to make sure we continue in that mode. And I think we do. Laura, did you want to talk a little bit about COVID policies in response to the temporary standard?
Yes, and I apologize. I shared this a little bit earlier, but I do need to make a slight adjustment to our agenda, and we'll be presenting our COVID policies in January or at our next board meeting. So please stay tuned. But I do want to just acknowledge that we have been working closely with Fairfax County and the Harity Building, as well as getting quite a bit of guidance coming through the state association's trainings as they relate to human resources in regards to COVID. We have made some adjustments already to policies to incorporate the Families First Corona Response Act back in May. And there's a number of internal procedures that we have as well that are currently in place in terms of providing masks, hand sanitizers, other kinds of sanitation materials, as well as ensuring that we've got social distancing, both from our field standpoint, our educational program standpoint, but also just internally here at the office and ensuring that we have a safe workplace. So we're just pulling all of that documentation together so that we can incorporate it as part of a temporary policy for our policy document as well. So please stay tuned for more information on that. But I just want to acknowledge an appreciation to our team for continuing to ensure the integrity of our programs, and making those sometimes very fast adjustments to be able to respond to some of the orders that are coming from the governor, but also for being good sports and listening to me droll on about different trainings on medium risk exposure and all sorts of things. So, but I really appreciate everybody taking this very seriously and putting the proper precautions in place.
That's just information, I believe, Laura. No action is required, right?
At this time, I hope to make sure that we bring this forward in January or at our next
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're down to the green breakfast. Is Harry on? I didn't see his name pop up. Laura, do you want to say anything about the green breakfast? And I really enjoyed the last one.
Sure. We had about 54 folks participate, and I think our fourth virtual green breakfast, let's see, September 3rd virtual green breakfast. And so the presentation was made by Michael Bishop, who's actually more recently an Ellie Doyle Award winner with the Fairfax County Park Authority for his work on establishing bluebird trails and purple martin colonies across Fairfax County Park Authority properties. He was sharing insights into the work that he's been doing and the importance and the value of the purple martin colonies and population in our area. It was very insightful. I'm sure his phone is ringing off the hook now for folks wanting to establish the gourds and houses as well for their particular properties. Or he certainly got a handful of different recommended locations for some as well. So it was a great program, lots of good questions, lots of great information. We currently don't have a lineup yet for January. I need to touch base with Harry and see if he has something particular in mind. But if you have any suggestions, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email and suggest them as we're kind of preparing our program for the next calendar year. So the next green breakfast will be on January 9th. And I just saw the note that came in from Ashley, who said that the November Green Breakfast will be up on YouTube by the end of the day today. And we'll be sure to share that via Facebook. We're already getting some requests. Also, just wanted to acknowledge that I got a request this morning from our partners across the street with Fairfax County Stormwater Planning Division, who received a request for some information about the MS4 program from a resident and was asking to use the Green Breakfast presentation that she gave as a resource for that individual so that they could learn a little bit more about the MS4 program. So when we think about, again, this adjustment to this new virtual world, we definitely miss meeting with each other. We miss seeing each other face to face. But the value of having these programs recorded is so it becomes a resource for others to be able to use as well. We'll look to incorporate some small groups or breakout rooms or something like that in January for folks that may be interested in a special topic.
Thank you, Laura. I think, Jerry, we're down to the Tree Commission.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, John. Tree Commission had its, I was going to say regular meeting, but it was online on 19th of November, last Thursday. And three things I want to pass on to you. One is we had a long discussion about the Joint Environmental Team's final report that was issued. This is a group that was formed by the Board of Supervisors and the school board jointly. We're going to work together on environmental issues. There were a couple of people commented that the report didn't address land use, they didn't address trees. And of course, for the Tree Commission, that was important. The commission agreed that the chair would send a letter, I believe, to the Board of Supervisors, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, commenting on the fact that they didn't address the major environmental issues that are of interest both to the school board and to the county in general. Second point is we are still accepting, well, I guess we've got two tree planting and protection awards nominated and expect to award them. I'm not sure when. We have not scheduled an award meeting. And we have two Friends of Trees award getting ready to go forward, which raises a question I'd like to hear Willie's response or anybody's. Whether the LDS awards are going to be competed. Is there a plan for having a ceremony where we normally do our tree planting and preservation awards? Willie,
did you hear the question?
I did. I was trying to get myself from the mute. So far, since the COVID situation crept in, we haven't done any site inspections, and as such, there is very little chance that, well, I shouldn't say very little chance, to be optimistic. I don't believe that between now and January, we will be able to do any site inspections. So I would say the program for the program year 2020, calendar year 20, would not take place.
Thank you, Willie. I think that was an assumption at the Tree Commission meeting, and we're going to have to establish our own venue for granting the awards that we have. The last thing is, and I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to ask Jim during your presentation to talk about the new tree counting app, why it's needed, and how people can use it. Jim, when we get around to your section, I know everybody would be interested in that and the need for it. That's all from the Tree Commission.
Thank you, Jerry. Let me ask Willie another question. Willie, this is likely the first year since the inception of those LDS awards that it's not been held, isn't it?
Very true. Yes, it's the very first time since we started them.
So another virus casualty.
Yes.
If I may I also wanted to make a point. Jerry mentioned that trees were not included, but neither was the term natural resources. And I think that that's a really grave error on the part of the county. So we're looking forward to putting something out there and wanted to re-highlight that.
Good point. How about the Engineering Standards Review Committee, Assad? I see Assad's on.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There was a ASRC virtual meeting on November 5. I have prepared a brief summary that and all the some attachments that included the business that was discussed during the meeting. I'm sure that Heather, as usual,
She
kindly has included in your board package. Still, ESRC is working on amendments and what has been proposed in terms of changes to PFM. They are working on Chapter 6, which is storm drainage, and Chapter 10 at the moment, which is mostly related to sewage and solid waste disposal. Which might be interesting to some extent, but Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District related to Chapter 6 is changing of a specification for man-made channels lined with gabions. And this is mostly related, it's an old business that they have been looking at, is mostly related to galvanized wire openings and the specification that they have. There is another amendment which is related to gates that access detention and retention ponds. MSMD has realized that homeowners complain that during the repair, when they open the gates, because of the proximity of the gate to trails, for example, it blocks the trail. So they have come with new specification to avoid that from happening. The new business is removal of Table 10.5 from Chapter 10, which is sewage and solid waste disposal chapter. Since Fairfax County Department of Public Works and Environmental Services not going to allow RCP pipe, reinforced concrete pipes, for collecting sewer, so the table which is related to pipe specification, including the depths of the trench, is with. They are going to remove the table. Presently, the DPWS is allowing only HDPE pipes, which is high density polyethylene pipes that are going to replace RCP pipes. So that table has been removed from the PFM, and whatever decision made on Chapter 6, I have marked it on the attachment which has been forwarded to you. So you will find what's the present status of those amendments.
Assad?
Yes.
Assad, why are RCPP pipes no longer being considered?
One of the reasons is in situation, it's mainly maintenance and durability. Because in situations where they have been, for some reasons, exposed, for example, on the stream banks or where they cross the channel, maintenance have become an issue when they are exposed. Another reason is basically the durability and ease of installation, and also costs.
Thank you.
Sure. That's all I have for you today.
Anybody have any questions for Assad? If not, I don't know if George Lamb is on or not. Laura, do you have anything on the Energy and Climate Action Plan?
I don't, but I do recognize, I think that plan has been completed, I want to say. So what we can do, John, is perhaps have George come to a future meeting and share a little bit about what the recommendations were that came out of that plan. I think it's been completed.
This is Jonna. Can I ask you a question? Because I'm an email that the subgroups for our focus groups are going to be meeting on the 1st and the 2nd from 6 to 9 p.m. We're breaking into subgroups.
Thank you, Jonna.
When you said that the task force is finished, I know the task force and the working groups are a little different, but I didn't think the task force could finish without the working groups. being
Sorry,
finished.
I may have misspoken. So I don't have the full information. So I apologize. You're maybe absolutely right. I was actually hoping somebody would speak up. So I'm glad that you did, Jonna.
I don't know. They've gone through a bit of confusion here since we last spoke, but I heard that they're going to change the format at least, and we're going to on the 1st and 2nd have meetings from 6 to 9 for the working groups, and they were supposed to send out stuff. They said Friday. That was last Friday, so they have one more Friday left before that. So haven't heard anything else.
You're talking about meeting in December, Jonna?
I'm sorry. Did I say December 1st and 2nd? Next, the week after Thanksgiving, next week on Tuesday and Wednesday nights from 6 to 9.
Right.
I said those are 2 back-to-back long meeting nights for this, but it just said the working group. I have the thing here. We'll be meeting December as 2 separate subgroups. These groups will meet in December, January 2021, and March 2021, and the entire working group will come together as a whole to complete the planning process with meetings in April and June of 2021.
So
Now these are work groups, which is not the same thing as the task force, but I think we're related.
But let me read. I'll redact, and what I'll do is I'll follow up with George and see if he can provide us with just a written report between now and the next meeting, and give us just a brief update. And doesn't necessarily need to be long, but he can help to clarify a few things. I apologize for the confusion I may have just caused. So I know George would be here. If he could, but we'll follow up with him another way.
Thank you, Laura and John.
I think CCAP as it was is done. I think it had to revamp and rework to make it work better. So.
Okay. We're down to other items before we get to the executive directors and the staff reports. I've got 3 things I'd like to mention. I'd just like to alert you all to the fact that I have asked Adria if she would again be willing to serve as our nominating committee for next year. And I believe she has agreed. I'll ask her once again, but I hope she has.
You got it.
Would you be willing to do that? Would you chair the nominating committee?
Absolutely. My pleasure.
And the other thing I mentioned, I think Debbie is probably going to expand on this, but don't forget the State Association's annual meeting virtually this year is December 7th. And I hope most of our directors at least can participate and as many staff as can also. And then the other thing we probably could do right now, Laura and board, is decide on whether or not any of you feel we have things that we have to discuss in December. Typically, December is a time when we have not held a board meeting. We're not going to have a TRC meeting in December. How many feel that we have something so vital that we have to discuss it in December that we need to have a board meeting? Or can we move, not have a board meeting and reconvene in January? We can always call a board meeting if needed.
I'll move to cancel the December board meeting.
I'll second it.
We have a move and a second to cancel the December board meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, once again, I'll call the roll. If you are in favor of the motion to cancel, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Director Bordas.
Aye.
Director Corner.
Aye.
Director Bilger.
Aye.
Director Peters.
Aye.
Any other directors or associates have anything they'd like to bring up at this point? Hearing none, I think we're down to you, Laura.
Wait, John, sorry, I couldn't get myself. I just want to report that EQUAC, wait a minute, I'm watching the board's legislative committee meeting. EQUAC will not be doing a presentation of this year's report to the Board of Supervisors. We were originally scheduled for next week's board meeting on the 1st. We've been asked to just submit it through the clerk's office for distribution because we didn't really do the whole report. We just did some updates on where we were last year or anything new that came in and did just a report. And so we will not be doing a presentation to the Board of Supervisors.
That's kind of a first also, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we were ready to present this report without it. We're giving last year's copies. We had some extras to the new board members who may have not seen it. So, yeah, I mean, we're required to report by our charter every year to the Board of Supervisors, but how we do that's not specified. We've kind of evolved this written annual report on the environment. But we're, like I said, we're giving last year's copies to the newer board people and any other people who might want it for their office. And then we just did a written report updating our scorecard on last year's recommendations and anything new that came up and what recommendations we recommend going forward, given our scenario. But yeah, the chairman of the board asked us not to. I think they're doing everything. It's just logistically hard. We can report by sending our report in. So.
Thank you, Jonna. Any other directors or associates? have anything? If not, Laura, we're down to the executive director's report.
Okay, I just wanted to give anybody else who was trying to get off of mute an opportunity to chat. Okay. I have a few items that I just wanted to mention. John, and Adria, thank you for welcoming Judy. We were very excited that she's here. Next week will be her 1 month anniversary, which is really hard to believe that that amount of time has passed so far. She's been drinking from the fire hose since the day that she got here, getting all sorts of information from a programmatic standpoint, as well as just getting to know our organization, which can take at least a month as well, just because with the history that we have, the differences of our programs, understanding how we fit in with other districts, our various partners, there's a lot to get associated with for sure. But we're very glad that she's here. She's taken the bull by the horns, and as you'll see in her staff report, she's already been really working hard to get to know the VCAP program well, and following all the breadcrumbs that were left behind by her predecessor, as well as getting integrated with the state steering committee and a number of other local partners as well. So we're very happy that she's here. She's actually sitting right over there in her office. So hi, Judy. But again, we're thrilled to have her here. This is kind of a hi and goodbye. I wanted to also just thank Meredith Keppel. Meredith is on here, I think, somewhere. Oh, I see her name. Meredith, as you may know, she's been our intern this fall and has been really supportive with our education programs, as well as a number of she's really been very accommodating and taking on a wide variety of different activities, but she's been working extremely well with Ashley. And we just thank her so much for all of her hard work this fall, and hope she enjoys the holiday season for sure. But I hope, again, if you take a look at her staff report, which is also incorporated in the board package, you'll see the wide variety of things that she has been doing. Most recently, she and Ashley have been involved in going out and doing some stream monitoring. So if any of you have actually stuck your hands in the streams at this time of year, you know that the temperature is pretty cold. So they've been, I appreciate the fact that they're not just fair weather stream monitors, that they get out there in the hard conditions as well. So, but again, really thank her for all of the service that she's been able to provide to all of us this fall. I'm going to pull just a couple of things from some of the staff reports, and then hopefully encourage some of our team members to speak up and share. I wanted to just acknowledge, you'll see in Maria's staff report that the seedling sale planning has been well underway this fall. And actually, I just wanted to thank her for her leadership in that program, and helping to move the program forward this fall and get it to a point where we can actually do some promotion a little bit earlier than is normal. So we will be moving on next week with getting an email and basically some newsletter information to the Board of Supervisor members, so that they can incorporate the information about our seedling sale in their January newsletters. So the timing of that is pretty important. We'll make sure that you all are included in that information as well, so you can also share it through the wide variety of means you have. Keep an eye out on our Facebook page or our Instagram for additional information that you're more than welcome to share with others as well. Maria, do you have anything else that you might want to add regarding the seedling sale?
Sorry, I had some problems unmuting myself. Another thank you again to Ashley and Meredith. They got our internal house website all up to date for the seedling sale in time for Laura to send out the notice to the supervisor districts. And we've got the actual web page where people purchase the seedlings as well up to date. So a bunch of efforts all around to get that rounded out and ready for distribution.
All right, great. Let's just making another quick note.
Is that all public now? Is that all public now, so people can start making orders?
So they can see the packages right now. We have it on a wait list, so they can click a note to get an email once we do open it.
Yeah, so right now we're not collecting orders. Folks, we would definitely sell out quickly once folks catch wind that we would be open. So we do anticipate that another great program as we head into the spring.
Do we have an estimated date for when we will start taking orders?
We have set February 4th for that date, and that is in the information that Laura is going to be sending out to the supervisors, and I believe it's also a couple of spots. It might be February 2nd. Now I'm looking at the date. I think it was February 4th last year and February 2nd. I can
Thank you, Maria.
your webpage.
Right. I also wanted to just acknowledge that our team has been working really hard this fall on VCAP site visits, and we are getting really close to wrapping those up. I think Judy and Dan have the last couple that they've been able to go out together on, which has been a great introduction for Judy to understand and see the site visit review process as well. So just again, we had 50 site visits that we did this fall. That were divvied among our technical team, and that was a lot. That was a lot, and I really appreciate them all contributing and digging in during this time, and helping to orient Judy as well to the program. I think it's been a reflective of our great team and the team effort as well. I wanted to. Before I get into this last item, I just wanted to acknowledge, John, I think you may have mentioned this. I can't recall, excuse me, if it was during the executive committee meeting or just earlier in this meeting in regards to the FOIA training that took place yesterday. Just a quick reminder, if those board members, this is a requirement for our elected directors. If you did participate in the FOIA training, please send me a note that you did, and I will make sure that we get it over to the clerk. They are the ones, she is the one who needs to hold that information, and that's what, keeps everybody in compliance. If you weren't able to make that training, I think that there may be a couple of others that are available, and Heather has been doing a great job of sharing that information. So if you did, John, I know you participated. Adria, you participated as well.
Laura, let me just make a comment about that. Usually I'm kind of critical of these kinds of training sessions, but yesterday I thought the presenter did an exceptionally good job. I was really pleased with the way that went. I've forgotten the gentleman's name, but it was really well done.
John, do you think the same person is going to present for the session that was first advertised?
I sure hope so, Jerry.
Was it Alan Gerhardt?
Yes, it was
Okay.
I
Alan.
think it was.
So
I think it was.
Alan will be providing the training on December the 15th for district directors. And my understanding is he is the voice behind the MP4 training that's in my report. I'll mention it in my report and show you where there's some other opportunities, but he knows his stuff. He's very good.
Debbie, he did an extremely good job. I was really impressed.
I heard that yesterday. I asked a couple people that attended, and they too were impressed with it. So hopefully the 15th will be a good session because he is the one that's going to do that training.
Thank you, Debbie.
So I have one quick question that seems a little, I had to disconnect around 2 minutes before 2 o'clock. Was it only an hour or was it longer than that time?
Closer to 2.
Okay, so I need to go back and do the whole another hour. Okay, sounds good. I had a conflict.
I think it came on at 10 and finished
10,
close to noon.
and I connected at 10 and I had to hop off at 10:58. So
I have a solution for you, Adria.
yeah.
They have recorded it. And in my report, under the FOIA section, which is number 3, there is actually an MP4 file now posted on the FOIA's website, and it takes about an hour to go through it. So you may just hop onto that, listen to it, and then let Laura know so she can let the clerk of the Board of Supervisors know that you've taken it.
Yeah.
You don't have to listen to a live one?
No.
Oh, good.
The FOIA Council has, I think, Regrettably, they understand that their online training is still not working, and that there are a lot of elected officials out here in Virginia that have to do this by code by the end of December. So they've actually recorded this session. It's an MP4 file. We just learned about this probably maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Well, it must have been just before my report went out. But you can, so you won't get a certificate, but so long as you can tell the clerk the date when you took it, kind of certify that you've taken it and what your elected position is, then they will accept that.
So those of us that did not sign up yesterday can do that.
Yes, you can do that, or you can tune in to the one the association is offering, which will be a webinar on December the 15th.
Yeah, that was the first one that was advertised, and I went ahead and signed up for it. So,
And that is a good one. I mean, if you are doing a live session and you do have questions, that gives you the opportunity to ask some questions as well. So, but again, just please let me know, and I can compile a lot of that information. If you just let me know which date you have completed it, we'll compile that again and send that on to Jill. So. Actually, I might participate in the one on the 15th as well. It's always good. I'm hoping it's a little bit more in depth on things that are relevant to elected board meetings and members and things like that, as opposed to the traditional FOIA, which is just focused on response on.
Right. The one on the 15th is supposed to be tailored to soil and water conservation districts.
If it's the same gentleman presenting, it will be, Laura. He was
great.
good. He was good.
I think that's great because that's been. I won't go into too much, but I think that having that insight into some more of those kinds of that section of FOIA is really, really important. The last item I wanted to bring up, it was mentioned at our TRC meeting, as Adri reported, was the Arlington Soil Survey that was recently completed. And I want to encourage Dan to just share a little bit about that effort. I think he's still on here. He is. And share a little bit about some of the outcomes and things like that they found through that assessment. Dan, I'm putting you totally on the spot here. You don't have to go into too great a depth, but I'm hoping that maybe you can just share some insights.
Sure. So this project happened sort of by chance. I was just bumping into one of the employees from the Department of Environmental Services at Arlington County, and they mentioned that they were interested in doing some soils work. The reason for that is they are considering doing some policy changes. It was their thought that a lot of the infill development and new residential construction going on in their county is underestimating the volume of runoff that's being created, primarily because they thought that the soil at new construction sites probably was of poor quality and very compact, very little porosity, and thus creating a lot of runoff and not absorbing a lot of rainfall. What they needed, though, was some actual numbers, facts to go along with this hypothesis of theirs. So that's why they contacted us. It was a small study. We ended up looking at 10 different properties. 5 existing properties, which were all volunteer properties. Maria had a contact at the Arlington Master Gardeners, and this person sent out an email blast to some of her friends. So we ended up using her property and 4 other people who volunteered themselves. All those houses, just by chance, happen to be almost within a 10-year span, approximately the same age. They were basically built from the early 50s to the early 60s. So these houses were in the 60 to 70-year-old range. And then the county itself gave us a list of 5 brand new residential properties. These were properties that were still under permit, had not been sold yet. So Maria and I went out in July to do the field work. We took soil samples and ran infiltration tests in the front yard and the backyard of all these properties. And then compared the results, and we were lucky to get some great help from Chris Ruck at Stormwater Planning, who's a real statistical guru, and he ran the statistical analysis for us. And we found that there were statistically significant differences between the the lawn soil and the old properties versus the brand new properties. We compared infiltration rates, basically how fast water percolates down into the ground at an inch per hour rate. We took a soil core using a slide hammer of the first 4 inches of soil in all of the properties, backyards and front yards. We sent that core off to soil testing lab in Richmond and had it tested for density as well as organic matter content. And we also, in the field, looked at the topsoil depth. And what we found was that the old properties had infiltration rates about 10 times faster than the new properties. I don't remember the exact numbers, but the old properties on average had about an inch per hour infiltration rate, which is decent. Not great, but decent. The new properties had about 0.1 inch per hour rate, meaning they're almost totally sealed. The old properties had an average topsoil depth of about 4 inches. The new properties had a topsoil depth of 1 inch. And the density for the old properties was significantly less than the density for the new properties. So in basically all of the information we gathered, it showed that the old properties had healthier soil than the new properties, and that will have a effect on the ability of the soil to soak up stormwater. And of course, that will have an effect on the amount of stormwater that's leaving properties. So it's yet to be determined how Arlington County will use that data. But again, the reason that they asked us to do this study is that they are considering some policy changes in the future, which would require a new residential property to do some sort of soil remediation to try and get the quality of their soil a little bit back more towards those older properties, meaning more infiltrative, more porous, less dense, higher organic matter. We'll see how it goes. But now at least they have some data to back it up. And potentially, I think from what Maria and I learned out in the field and the amount of time it took to take some of this data, we can kind of do I think we found what works fast, what sort of bare bones data we would need. And with that in mind, I think this is certainly a project that could also be expanded into Fairfax County, or maybe even continued in Arlington County if they should so choose, because obviously the more properties we have, the larger our data set and the more conclusive our results will be. Right now it's good data, but a fairly small sample size.
Hey, Dan, this is Chris. I read your report and it looked really good. But your comment just then is if the old properties were all master gardener properties, do you think that might have biased by having a little bit better cared for properties?
It's strange. Yes and no. Of course, it's a guess, but yes, possibly. And some of these properties were fairly nice. You could tell people took good care of them. But at the same time, I think from what the owners of the property said, some of them nominated themselves for the study because they had bad soil and drainage problems. There was one in particular, I know they were saying, when we came out and met the homeowners on site, they were saying that their soil just seemed to create lots and lots of runoff. So they were curious to get our data to see if there was something going wrong on their property. So it's hard to say, but it's possible. I think they all were well maintained, but the self-selection also tended to favor some properties that had existing problems.
And one other thing, I have a whole set of ART's soil sampling equipment, including a slide hammer. So if you and Maria start doing more projects and it helps to double up on some of that equipment, I could let you borrow it. Although I don't want you doing stuff as fast as you did on that second video that you and Ashley put together.
Well, thank you, and we might end up using it.
That's great. Thank you, Dan. I know I put you on the spot there, but that was very well articulated and shared. So it's important work and certainly something that I'm sure the Arlington folks are chewing on right now. And I would anticipate that we'll be involved in some future conversations with that as well. I just wanted to, I'm sorry.
Question, are we sending that report to our county people who model stormwater runoff?
Yes, I saw Katie Torgerson is in our meeting right now. I know she had mentioned even before we had started doing the field work that she would be interested in her results. And if I'm remembering correctly, I did email the final report to her. But if I didn't, I certainly intend to. But I think I already did.
I think it'd be fascinating to look at each of the major geologic formations in Fairfax and do the same type of study to see if the soil type, like Triassic versus most of the county and the marine soils, if the same relationship holds in other geologic settings.
Definitely. And something Chris mentioned when he was going over the stats with us was that it would be interesting to do a kind of separate the properties based upon time since construction. So since we ended up looking at 50s and 60s era houses that were all built within about a 10-year span, are those houses better because they're the construction practices back then did less damage to the soil, or are they better because they've had 60 to 70 years to sort of undo the damage? So it'd be interesting to get some 70s, 80s, and 90s era houses to compare to see if there's some sort of slow transition back to a healthier state that these properties go through. And that we just don't know that yet because we don't have the data.
Great.
Dan, do you have the ability that if you get more data on porosity, permeability, and filtration rates, to add it into it and start building a comprehensive database that allows you to look at the different, say, geologic units or the times?
It's possible. It's hard to say. We'd have to get it depends on how much time we have, to be honest, and whether there's available funding out there as well, too.
Yeah, it may not involve doing all the statistical analysis to evaluate them, but just start building data.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, and now that we have, I think we've got this first study helped us fine tune our field protocols. I think what we'll do in the future, if we do continue this study, is to simplify our data collection a little bit so we can go faster from property to property. And with that, we should be able to, with less time output and time constraints, be able to collect more data quicker and build up a database that we can use.
Yeah, it's important information, and I think there's a number of ways of being able to look at that data and kind of understand whether or not there are any correlations, a time and things like that is certainly something we've chatted a little bit about. I've also volunteered my own property built in the 90s to even just do a quick verification as well. But some of the interesting things that we find with a lot of these kinds of assessments, and certainly it does very dependent upon the size of your data and the amount of data you have to collect. But with the LID assessments that we did several years ago, we were able to understand some of the correlations with some of the challenges that we're seeing were not necessarily related to maintenance, but perhaps were related to the constructed, what was going on during construction. And certainly as you're once they're in the ground and they're covered, can't necessarily see what's been taking place. And it's sort of similar a lot of times with the compaction of our soils as well. Once they're covered with turf and sod, it's, you don't necessarily appreciate what's been the compaction that's underneath that as well, unless your sod's not growing. So, but it's great work. Dan, I appreciate again your time and sharing some of the outcomes of that research. And I think you're going to be in that mode of data sharing here, both you and Maria, data sharing for a little while in regards to that work and the protocol, also the standard operating procedure that you developed as part of that too. That is really all that I have for today. I did want to let you know that I have been participated in the last EQUAC meeting, which was really informative, but it's another one of those groups that is oftentimes hard to get to under normal circumstances because of during that particular time in the evening. It's always challenging for me with soccer games and practices and things like that. But being able to participate virtually allowed me to listen in and be a fly on the wall. It's a great group, very thoughtful folks, and there may be some opportunity for further coordination there as well into the future. I wanted to actually encourage Ashley to chat a little bit about some recent activities with our poster contests. You know me, I like to put people on the spot. There she is.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to share, I think it was at the last board meeting that we talked a little bit about all of our poster contest winners and sending them on to state. And we have some really talented kids here because Natalie Peters, who was our winner for our kindergarten to first grade category, won also the state competition, which is really great. So now her poster is moving to the NACD competition. So we might have another national winner this year, which would be really exciting.
Good.
That is exciting. That is exciting, very much so. So we will have to make sure that we get some, I think we've already shared that already on Facebook and everything. So again, please keep getting the word out. But great job, Ashley. It's always a fun program. And that's one that we were concerned that we might not get quite the response because of COVID. But we did. We got, and we've got a state winner. So that's very exciting. We should be very proud of our students. With that, that
it, Laura?
That I have for today.
All right. Laura, thank you and the staff. And by the way, I apologize. For about 4 minutes, we lost power here. I was completely offline. So I had to come back on. I don't know what's happened, but I got a lot of clocks I'm going to have to repair. By the way, I think we're down now to our cooperating agencies, and I couldn't see if anybody was on from stormwater planning. Is somebody on?
Yes, Katie is on. She is.
Is she on?
She is.
Ah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Katie.
So just to build off of what Dan shared, I know stormwater and LDS is very interested in the findings of the soils assessment. That's something that we've been looking at jointly, how to approach infill development and look at different policies to help mitigate some of the stormwater challenges we've seen from the big boom in redevelopment. So I've shared that study findings with the groups and including an infill work group. And I think the county is also looking at ways to incorporate kind of the same ideas. We've been partnering with Arlington and sharing ideas. So I think in 2021, we're going to see some new policies coming out on infill and stormwater management. I also wanted to share with you the county's flood response strategy. It's something that I've been working on in coordination with a number of different agencies across the county and with some of our neighboring municipalities, largely in response to the July 8th storm from last year, but also recognizing that flood mitigation has been an ongoing issue in the county, basically, since the beginning of stormwater management. So this is just a collection of initiatives to help advance flood mitigation and help the county become more proactive and a little less reactive as we see these storms, potentially an increase in the types of these storms as we move forward in the future. So we're going to identify high-risk flood-prone areas in the county. We have a lot of information on our GIS available already. So we'd like to compile this existing GIS data and some tools to evaluate flood risk. Right now, we're currently complaint-based, so we respond to complaints from residents in the county. But we'd like to become more objective and comprehensive in our look at flood risk throughout the county. Make sure we're capturing adequately capturing need throughout the county and not just relying on people reporting it. There's an effort underway to map minor floodplains. So the county regulates both minor and major floodplains. So major floodplains are the ones regulated by FEMA largely. They are over 360 acres of drainage area. But the county also regulates minor floodplains, which is pretty incredible. Not all areas do that. And so those are 70 to 360 acres. So while they're regulated, they're not all mapped. And that's become a challenge because people developing within these minor floodplains don't necessarily know what the water surface elevations are. So we're working on mapping those and even going up to 40 acres in terms of drainage area, which would be amazing to have that level of detail in terms of a floodplain. And then we're developing a project prioritization and selection tool to help create a more efficient process for selecting and evaluating flood mitigation projects. So as we get an influx of stormwater complaints or needs with each storm, for example, I think we got over 300 complaints with the July 8th storm. We'll have a quick way of evaluating and prioritizing which ones to focus on first. And this will help us kind of develop and move forward with a capital improvement and maintenance improvement plans, and hopefully get to a point where we can proactively identify projects to help mitigate areas that we know may be prone to flooding, but maybe haven't experienced it in a while or quite yet. And then we're also looking at revising stormwater regulatory requirements to better manage flood risk, both inside and outside of the floodplain. So enhancing overland relief design standards, and that's the ability to pass the 100-year storm without flooding structures. Where a lot of times people don't know that, the little swale around their house is actually, a relief path for large storm events, and they'll put fences and sheds in its place and block the flow. So we're working on reviewing that and making sure that development doesn't, or the people are more aware of where those paths are and that they are adequately designed for in development, particularly in infills where it's a little bit more challenging to get that to that level of detail. And then reviewing and updating development criteria and restrictions for new development. So even looking at things like limits on impervious cover or additional detention requirements for certain areas that are more prone to flooding. And then we're looking at strengthening development restrictions within the floodplain and maybe tightening up some of the standards that we have for grandfathering and special exceptions for building in the floodplain. We are also looking into kind of a more comprehensive approach to suburban residential redevelopment, which is largely infill now, that we're largely built out. People are developing lot by lot, and we're losing a lot of the infrastructure improvements that came with larger subdivisions. So taking information like the soil assessment that Dana Maria did and things like that, and working with our planning and development group to rethink how we approach redevelopment in that suburban residential setting. And then we're also trying to incorporate climate change projections into the stormwater regulations and really tracking a lot of regional efforts that are underway to come up with these projections, and then coordinating with the Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination on their plan as well. And then finally, building a toolbox of flood mitigation, education, and outreach resources. Found that there's just a lot of need for people to really recognize their flood risk and see that wherever it can rain, it can flood. The need to educate people on those overland relief paths and keeping them clear, and the ability and encourage people to purchase flood insurance, even those that are outside of the floodplain. So there's a lot of things moving forward. It's going to be a slow process, for some of these, but it is exciting that kind of have a plan in place and now can start moving some of these initiatives forward. Any questions? There's a lot of information.
Thank you, Katie. Any questions for her? If not, thank you, Katie. I don't see Paul Shannon on. Is he on for the Department of Public Health, County Health Department? Do you have anything from Paul, Laura?
No, I did not hear from Paul.
Okay, we're down then to DCR. Debbie.
Good morning, everybody. Just a few things. You have my report there in front of you.
You do?
The General Assembly did finally recess, and the governor has now signed a budget for fiscal year 21. So that's good news. The two things that were most of concern for soil and water conservation districts was the $3.84 million in the Water Quality Improvement Fund that was reallocated and is in the budget, and also the $15 million for dam rehabilitation projects. So both of those are in the budget. And my understanding is the Soil and Water Board will be discussing those two topics at their meeting in December. So we fared okay. We fared just fine for fiscal year 21.
As well as we could have expected, Debbie.
Yes. Fiscal year 22 is a whole different ball of wax. The General Assembly will be meeting virtually, or at least the House will. The association will not be having their legislative day, but they will be having a legislative virtual training for district directors, and they are still working on what their outreach protocol will be. So we need to stay tuned for that. As far as area meetings, just to let you know, we did have our Area 2 fall meeting on November the 10th. We do have some new officers that will be taking office on December the 7th. John Flannery, who is a director up at Loudon, will be the new Area 2 chair. And Will Lintner, who's a relatively new director at Prince William Soil and Water Conservation District, agreed to be vice chair. We had a tough time filling that vice chair position. So anyway, we'll have some new officers. We had a successful meeting. It was, these virtual meetings sometimes can be challenging. But anyway, I thought at least we got the job done.
It went well. It went well.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got that going on. The next section there is the FOIA training that we talked about. So the two opportunities that you have yet before you, number 1 and number 4. Number 1 deals with the December 10th training. December 15th training from 3 to 4. That will be a webinar. It will be provided by Alan Gerhardt, who is the principal at the Freedom of Information Council, and he is also the person that did the training yesterday. So good trainer. Ours will be an hour. It will be tailored towards soil and water conservation districts. So if you have that day and that hour available, that's one opportunity. The other opportunity is number 4. And that is what I mentioned earlier. The FOIA Council has recorded the training as an MP4 file. That link is there. It's also can be found on their website. So you can watch that training. And then in my message, I say to call the clerk. But since Laura's asked you to call her, just let Laura know or send Laura an email. And then she can provide that to the clerk of the Board of Supervisors to let them know. There's not a certificate required. And there's no certificate that will be created as a result of this training. So you'll have to kind of write that down for your own records. And the FOIA Council has said certificates are not required. So that email that goes to Jill will suffice for that training. So there's 2 opportunities to do that. The annual report and annual plan to work, you approved your annual plan to work this morning, and Laura sent me the materials for your annual report, so we're good there. The virtual training blitz, the 2 things I want to remind you of. December the 7th is the association's annual membership meeting. That will be the business meeting, December 7th from 2 until 4 o'clock. That is the meeting where district directors will be voting. and you will have your election of officers. You will vote on your budget for the next year, the legislative agenda. You'll approve all of the work of the executive board of directors over the year. So that's a real important meeting. That's the one that we have during the annual meeting. That's the business meeting portion of it. So I encourage the elected and appointed directors to register for that and tune in. As a minimum, you need to have somebody from your district on that call. And then earlier that day, there will be the board of directors meeting that if you're interested in attending that, you can. That's down under my important dates. Registration is required for that. And I can send you the link, or it'll be in my December report when it comes out, but the association just loaded that on their website. So if you want to attend the board of directors meeting on December 7th from 9 to noon, actually I think it's now 9:30 to 12:30, the link is on the association's website. And then the other thing to call your attention to is the Soil and Water Board will be meeting on December the 16th virtually. And the link to join that meeting is there. You do not have to pre-register for that meeting. You can just log in, or you can call in to listen in on that meeting. That is a public meeting. There will be a public comment period, but generally we just listen in, and the Soil and Water Board members are the ones that discuss. But as I said, they will be taking up several items of great importance. The budget. They'll take up those items. They'll also be discussing, you'll remember that the code required that DCR prepare a perennial stream identification office protocol for operating the code language. The Chesapeake Bay Bill is what we call it in 2025, if we have to move forward in requiring agriculture producers that have over, I think it's 20 or 25 cattle to eliminate cattle from streams. The code speaks of perennial streams, but that has not been very well defined. So the board will be taking this up. There was a stakeholder group that worked on that. They do have some guidance that has been prepared. There's been a public meeting virtually on that, and they'll be taking that item up at that board meeting. So that's an important step forward, and it was required statutorily. The other thing that was required statutorily was by the end of December that there be a portable stream fencing practice that would be provided to producers in our fiscal year 22 cost share program. And the Soil and Water Board will probably be taking that up. The Technical Advisory Committee met early in November and actually has approved the specifications for that. So that will be going forward to the Soil and Water Board for inclusion in our fiscal year 22 program. And those were both brought about by the Chesapeake Bay bill legislation that we are preparing for the 2025 deadline, when we have to be to certain benchmarks by then, or else it will become regulation. So that's all I have, unless you have some specific questions for me.
No questions, but I have another comment, Debbie. Even though we can't hold our legislative day the way we normally do, once we approve our legislative agenda for the state association, we will still get that in the hands of all the members of the General Assembly.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there will be some type of a, concerted, organized outreach effort. I just don't know what that looks like quite yet.
Correct. Anybody
This is
else have
Monica. Oh, yes. Hi, Chairman. Sorry. This is just Monica. I just wanted to reiterate, I do think, thank you for letting us know about the legislative information. I think it'll be critically important to make sure that that's done in a collaborative, comprehensive way, because we definitely don't want, I had some concern listening to different directors. I don't think everybody's fully understands sometimes the way to approach legislators, and it really needs, it's well done when everybody's doing it together, because you can have some people who know how to take the lead in that. So I think a a good forum for educating and having create some form of a plan in going to legislators is very, very important so that we're all on the same message and we know who's talking to who. The only other question I had was the virtual training blitz. Is there going to be an opportunity to have those, to review those in the future?
They actually, after the association is recording those. And if you go to the association's website, which is, I don't have it in here, but if you Google VASWCD and you go to the virtual blitz, right in there, they have a list of all the trainings that they've conducted so far. And there's a link to the recording.
Oh, good.
Presentation. So they are trying to have it available after the training for people to go back and take a look at.
I really appreciate that because I've wanted to go to all of these. They look amazing. I just haven't been able to go during the time slot. So I appreciate that.
I'll find that link for you, Monica, and email it to you.
Thank you so much.
And those training sessions are quite good, so anybody can take them. Anything else for Debbie? If not, we do not have an NRCS person on, I think you said, Laura. So we're down to the Department of Forestry. Jim?
Okay. I don't have a lot to report from the Department of Forestry. The main thing is, as Jerry alluded to during the Tree Commission report, we now have our tree counting app up and running. It's called My Tree Counts. I actually sent Laura and Ashley about a 3-paragraph blurb about it. We are trying to get the word out so people know that if they plant trees or shrubs, they can report them. And we'll get some idea of how many trees and shrubs we are planting. Looking at some of the stuff that came to me, it looks like over the next 5 years, we are going to try and plant 500,000 trees in the Northern Virginia area. And that includes homeowners, soil and water districts, local governments. So we need to get those counted. The other thing I wanted to pass along to you, this is a little more personal. The editor of my homeowner or our Civic Association newsletter came by and asked Dina and me to write an article about conservation landscaping on our property. And in that, I did give a plug to the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District seedling sale, because that's one of the places we got a lot of our trees and shrubs that are growing in our yard now. And that should be in the next Rose Hill Rambler. And finally, with regard to all this discussion about stormwater and land management, this past spring, we had a lot of very heavy rain. And Dina, now being retired, took the opportunity to go out and take some video of the runoff in my neighbor's turf grass yard versus what was happening in our property. And it's pretty striking. So if that's something that the Soil and Water District or the county wants to use to show the effects of conservation landscaping on runoff, we'd be more than happy to share it. And Dan, if you ever want to look at what happens when you don't rake your leaves for 16 years, you can come to my yard. I've got 3 inches of black topsoil. And that was all I had. I did participate in a couple of the training blitz trainings last week. So that's it.
Jim, I've got a question. Does it make sense to put together a flyer we can hand out to seedling sale clients about using how to find and use the app?
Yes, and we've already agreed to that.
Pardon?
I think that's been actually part of some of the conversations that the planning team has been discussing for the seedling sale, and trying to figure out the best way of making sure that we can get encourage those that participate in the seedling sale to report their trees once they're planted through the app.
I think it's another educational opportunity for the people who buy our trees. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So,
Jim, my guess is the district can use your video and probably will if you let us.
And Laura, you mentioned you're going to be sending something to all the supervisors about the seedling sale. You can pass along that little Word file that I just sent to you earlier today.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions of Jim? Is there anything else to come before the board?
Hey, I just want to give a big kudos to Jim and the urban forestry pest management forest pest health team. Kudos for their oak decline seminar on Friday. We had nearly 300 people in attendance, and it was really amazing. We had to quickly switch over from one Zoom link to another, which was a little bit of a organizational scary time, but we had also a lot of support by Master Gardener volunteers who stayed in one room and shuffled everyone into the next room, which was great. And we have the link on that coming up soon. We're just trying to finish up stuff, and it should be on our YouTube page this week.
Thank you, Adria.
Back to Heather so we can all get it.
Yeah, it'll be available to the public. Anybody can watch it. It's about an hour and a half long. There are some choppy parts just because of internet connection, and we had that many people on, which was fantastic. So, way to go. It was clearly a topic that is very timely and very concerning to the public, losing a number of oak trees. I had a number of thank you emails afterwards. So I just wanted to pass along the thanks and congrats to Jim for the help on that. Way to go, Jim.
I second that motion.
Thank you.
I'll third it.
Before we adjourn, I'd like to remind all the directors that if you have anything for Laura on the budget or the contributory agreement, make sure you get it into her by the end of next week so that we can move forward with that. And before we ask for a motion to adjourn, I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving with which family you can have a happy Thanksgiving with in these circumstances. And it's probably time to see if there's a motion to adjourn. Is there?
I want to second your motion first, John. Happy Thanksgiving. And I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. I presume there's not going to be any discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Same to all of you. Thank you so much for being on the board meeting with us.
Aye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
And staff.
Stay healthy and safe, everyone.
Yes, you too.
Yeah, don't travel.